The morning sun cast long shadows across the New Dakota colony as the workers began their daily routine. Jake Murphy, a former Earth military colonel who now served as the colony's security chief, was drinking his coffee when the alarm started, screaming. His hands shook slightly as he set down the cup and reached for his communicator. "All hands to battle stations," he announced, his voice calm despite the fear growing in his chest. "We have unknown ships approaching fast." Above the colony, 12 massive alien vessels dropped out of hyperspace. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, with smooth purple hulls that seemed to glow in the starlight. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. The lead ship began broadcasting a message in broken English. "Primitive humans," the voice said with obvious amusement. "You will surrender your colony to the great Zephyrian Empire. We give you 1 hour to decide." Admiral Crixvell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small human settlement through his viewing screen. His forearms crossed in satisfaction as he studied the primitive buildings below. This would be easy, just like the 17 other worlds his empire had conquered. The humans had only a few small defense platforms and what looked like mining equipment. Nothing that could threaten his mighty fleet. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the humans are not responding to our surrender demand." Crixvell's eyes narrowed. "Then they choose death. Begin the attack." Down on the colony, Jake Murphy gathered his small team of security officers. There were only 12 of them, all former military who had come to New Dakota seeking a peaceful life. Now they faced an impossible situation. "Lisa," he called to the chief engineer, a small woman with grease on her hands and determination in her eyes. "Can you turn those mining lasers into weapons?" Lisa Wong nodded quickly. "Give me 30 minutes. The power cores are strong enough to punch through ship armor if we can aim them right." "Tom," Murphy turned to a big man who ran the colony's farms. "How many civilians can fight?" Tom Bradley, who had served as a Marine before becoming a farmer, looked around at the frightened colonists. "Most of them know how to shoot. We hunt the local wildlife for food, but Colonel, those ships up there could glass this whole planet." Murphy looked up at the alien ships. They were moving into attack formation, their weapons charging with deadly light. "Maybe so, Tom, but we're not going down without a fight. This is our home." The first alien attack came at noon. Purple energy beams lashed down from space, destroying the colony's main power station and 3 residential buildings. The humans scattered for cover, but instead of panicking, they moved with purpose. Lisa had worked a miracle. The mining equipment now hummed with deadly energy. She had connected every laser drill, every plasma cutter, and every industrial beam to the colony's backup power grid. The farmers and workers who operated this equipment every day now turned it toward the sky. "Fire!" Murphy shouted. Brilliant! Beams of energy shot upward. The aliens had not expected this. Their shields, designed to stop military weapons, were not prepared for the raw industrial power of mining equipment. The first Zephyrian ship shuddered as its hull cracked under the assault. Crixvell stared in shock as warning lights flashed across his bridge. "How are they doing this? Those are not military weapons." His tactical officer, a young Zephyrian named Hextus, studied the readings. "Sir, they are using industrial equipment. The power output is crude but massive. They are overloading our defensive systems. Then we will show them real power," Crixvell snarled. "All ships, focus fire on their weapon positions." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Zephyrians had experienced. The humans did not fight like any other species they had conquered. When one mining laser was destroyed, 2 more appeared, from hidden positions. When alien troops landed to take the weapons, they found the equipment booby-trapped and defended by farmers who fought like professional soldiers. Tom Bradley led a group of colonists through the underground tunnels they had dug for mining. They appeared behind alien landing parties and struck with hunting rifles and improvised explosives. The Zephyrian soldiers, trained for honorable combat, were confused by these hit-and-run tactics. "They fight like cowards," one alien warrior complained over the radio. "No," his commander replied grimly. "They fight like people defending their home." The turning point came when Lisa Wong did something that changed everything. She had been studying the alien ships through the colony's telescopes, and she noticed something important. The Zephyrian ships had to lower their shields to fire their weapons. "Colonel Murphy," she called over the radio, "I need you to make them really angry. When they focus all their fire on one spot, their shields will drop for 3 seconds." Murphy understood immediately. He gathered his security team at the colony's center, making themselves an obvious target. The alien ships, frustrated by hours of unsuccessful fighting, took the bait. As purple energy rained down around them, Murphy counted. 3, 2, 1, now. Every remaining mining laser fired at once, all aimed at the flagship. The concentrated beam punched through the unshielded hull like a knife through paper. Crixvel's mighty vessel began to fall toward the planet's surface. But then something happened that shocked the aliens even more than their defeat. As the flagship crashed in the desert outside the colony, human rescue vehicles raced toward the wreckage. Instead of finishing off their enemies, the humans were trying to save alien lives. Jake Murphy reached the crash site first. He found Admiral Crixvel trapped under wreckage, his forearms broken and his breathing labored. Instead of leaving him to die, Murphy called for medical help. "Why?" Crixvel asked weakly as human medics worked to free him. "We came to destroy you." Murphy looked down at the alien commander with something that might have been pity. "Because that's what humans do. We fight hard, but we don't let people die when we can help them." As the remaining Zephyrian ships retreated, their commanders watched in confusion as humans shared their medical supplies with captured aliens and worked to rescue survivors from the crashed vessels. In all their conquests, they had never seen anything like this. The battle was over. 70% of the Zephyrian attack fleet was destroyed or too damaged to fight. But the real victory was something else entirely. The aliens had learned that humans were not just dangerous enemies. They were something far more terrifying. They were people who could fight with deadly skill and then show mercy to those who had tried to kill them. Word of the Battle of New Dakota would spread across the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. The great throne room of the Zephyrian High Command buzzed with angry voices. War Counselor Thex Moore, the most powerful military leader in the Empire, slammed his 4 fists on the metal table. His purple skin had turned dark with rage as he read the battle reports from New Dakota. "This is impossible," he roared at the trembling messenger. "You tell me that Admiral Crixvel, our greatest fleet commander, was defeated by farmers and miners? That 70% of our attack force was destroyed by primitive humans using mining equipment?" The messenger, a young officer named Dex Cole, kept his eyes on the floor. "Sir, the reports have been verified 3 times. The humans fought with tactics we have never seen before. They turned their industrial machines into weapons and used guerrilla warfare." Thex Moore's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Guerrilla warfare? What is this term?" "It means they hide and strike from unexpected places, sir. They do not fight in formation like honorable warriors. They use tricks and traps." Around the room, other war counselors muttered in disgust. The Zephyrian way of war was built on honor and direct confrontation. They had conquered 17 worlds by showing superior technology and demanding surrender. When enemies fought back, they met them in open battle. This talk of hiding and trickery was disturbing. "Bring me Intelligence Officer Zara Kin," Thex Moore commanded. "I want to know everything about these humans. Their technology, their numbers, their weaknesses. We will crush them properly this time." Zara Kin arrived within minutes, carrying a stack of data tablets and looking nervous. She was smaller than most Zephyrians, with the pale skin that marked her as a scholar rather than a warrior. But her mind was sharp, and she had spent years studying alien species for the Empire. "Sir," she began carefully, "I have been gathering information about humans since the New Dakota incident. What I have found is troubling." "Explain," Thex Moore growled. Zara Kin activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. Images of human soldiers appeared, fighting in various conflicts across their history. These are humans engaged in what they call warfare. The footage comes from information brokers who have observed their species for decades. The first images showed humans from their ancient past, fighting with primitive weapons on their home planet. Thousands of soldiers charged across muddy battlefields facing machine guns and explosions that would terrify most species. Many died, but more kept coming. This is from their World War II, Zara Kin explained. Over 60 million humans died in this conflict, yet they continued fighting for 6 years. They fought in deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, and burning cities. They never surrendered even when their cities were bombed and their armies were defeated. War Counselor Hexmon, an old veteran with scars across his face, leaned forward. 60 million? That is more than our entire population. How many humans are there? Current estimates suggest over 12 billion on their homeworld alone, sir. And they have colonies on hundreds of worlds. The room fell silent. The entire Zephyrian Empire had only 50 million citizens spread across 18 worlds. The humans outnumbered them by an impossible margin. Show us more, Thexmore demanded, though his voice was quieter now. The display changed to show more recent conflicts. Human spaceships engaged in fierce battles around distant planets. Zara Kin pointed to one particular scene where a single, human warship faced 3 larger enemy vessels. This is Captain Danny Foster defending Europa Station. His ship was damaged and outnumbered, but he held off a pirate fleet for 3 weeks using nothing but clever tactics and determination. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Foster's crew had been fighting without sleep for the final 72 hours. Another scene showed human cargo ships being attacked by raiders. Here, Commander Amy Chen used civilian transports as decoys to help evacuation shuttles escape. She sacrificed her own ship to save others. This type of self-sacrifice appears to be common among humans. The war counselors watched in growing unease as more footage played. Humans fighting in asteroid fields, using rocks as weapons. Human marines holding a space station against impossible odds, buying time for civilians to escape. Human engineers rigging their own bases to explode rather than let them fall to enemies. What disturbs me most, Zara Kin continued, is that humans consider these to be minor conflicts. They call them police actions or border disputes. When I researched their major wars, I found something truly frightening. She showed them footage of human civil wars, where they fought each other with weapons that could destroy moons. Space battles involving thousands of ships, with human commanders making split-second decisions that decided the fate of entire star systems. Sir, Zara Kin said quietly, I believe we have made a terrible mistake. Humans do not fight wars the way we do. They do not seek honor or glory. They fight for survival, and they never give up. Ever. Thexmore stared at the images floating before him. In one scene, a human soldier with a broken arm continued fighting even as blood ran down his face. In another, human civilians armed themselves with kitchen knives when their military fell back. There is more, sir, Zara Kin said reluctantly. I intercepted some of their military communications. When they heard about our attack on New Dakota, human military commanders began preparing something they call total war protocols. What does that mean? It means if we threaten their homeworld or major colonies, every human ship, every space station, every mining platform becomes a weapon. They have backup plans for their backup plans. They are prepared to lose entire fleets and keep fighting. The room was completely silent now. The Zephyrian way of war was built on the idea that any enemy would surrender when faced with superior force. But these humans seemed to become more dangerous the more pressure was applied to them. War Counselor. Hexmon spoke first. How did they develop such fighting spirit? Zara Kin pulled up more data. Their homeworld is harsh, sir. They survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed millions, and wars that lasted decades. They evolved to be survivors. Giving up is not in their nature. And their technology? Asked another counselor. Less advanced than ours in some ways, more advanced in others. But they are incredibly good at taking existing technology and using it in unexpected ways, like turning mining equipment into weapons as we saw at New Dakota. Thexmore finally stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the room. He had been a warrior his entire life, had personally led the conquest of 8 worlds, but now, for the first time in his career, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Continue your research, he ordered Zarakin. I want to know everything. Their military strength, their weapons, their weaknesses. Everything. As the meeting ended and the counselors filed out, Thexmore remained behind, staring at the frozen image of human soldiers advancing through smoke and fire. These were not the primitive colonists he had expected to find. These were warriors born from a species that had survived everything the universe could throw at them. For the first time in Zephyrian history, the Empire faced an enemy that might be stronger than they were. 3 weeks after the first briefing, War Counselor Thexmore called another emergency meeting. The Great Hall was darker this time, filled with worried whispers and nervous energy. Intelligence Officer Zarakin stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays showing data that would change everything. I have completed my investigation into the human species, she announced, her voice barely steady. What I have discovered will horrify you. Thexmore gestured for her to continue. Around the room, the other war counselors leaned forward, expecting to hear about human weaknesses they could exploit. The battle at New Dakota was not a fluke, Zarakin began. It was humans fighting at perhaps 20% of their actual capability. They were holding back. Impossible, snarled War Counselor Hexmon. We lost most of our fleet. Zarakin activated her display. Let me show you what humans call a real war. The hologram filled with images that made the Zephyrian warriors step back in shock. Massive fleets of human warships engaged in battles that stretched across entire solar systems. Weapons that could crack planets fired continuously as thousands of ships maneuvered in complex patterns. This is from their civil war 50 years ago, Zarakin explained. Humans fighting other humans over political differences. Watch this battle near their outer colonies. The footage showed Admiral Kate Rivers commanding a human fleet during what the records called the Independence War. Her ships were outnumbered 3-1, but she used tactics that seemed impossible. She hid her fleet inside asteroid fields, used gravity wells as weapons, and coordinated attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. How many ships died in this battle? Asked Thexmore quietly. Over 4,000 on both sides, sir. But the humans kept fighting for 3 more years after this defeat. They never considered surrender. The next footage was even more disturbing. It showed a human commander named General Pete Robinson defending a colony world against rebels. When his orbital defenses were destroyed, he moved the fight to the planet's surface. When his ground forces were overwhelmed, he retreated to underground bunkers and fought for 6 months with civilian volunteers. This man, Robinson, held out until relief forces arrived, Zarakin continued. But here is what terrifies me. When I studied the civilian casualties, I found that the colonists were not just hiding, they were fighting. Children as young as 12 were running supplies to the soldiers. Elderly people were building bombs in their basements. War Counselor Fextar, the youngest member of the council, spoke up. You mean the entire population becomes military? Exactly. Humans do not separate soldiers from civilians the way we do. Every human is a potential warrior if their home is threatened. Zarakin showed them more footage, a battle where Captain Samantha Cross fought for 36 hours straight, stimulants keeping her awake as she commanded her ship in a running battle against pirates. Marine Sergeant Mike Davis leading just 12 soldiers against 200 enemy troops on a space station, using the station's own life support systems as weapons. But this is still nothing compared to what I discovered about Earth itself, Zarakin said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. The display changed to show humanity's homeworld. At first glance, it looked like a beautiful garden planet with blue oceans and green continents. But as the image zoomed in, the Zephyrians began to see the truth. Earth is not a garden world, Zarakin explained. It is a fortress that happens to be beautiful. Look closer. The peaceful cities were revealed to have massive underground bunker systems. The orbital stations were not just for trade and research. They were armed platforms that could defend against planet-killing asteroids. The asteroid belt around Earth's system was filled with hidden weapon caches and automated defense systems. 12 billion humans live on this world, Zarakin continued, but it is also the most heavily defended planet in known space. They have survived asteroid impacts that would destroy most worlds. They have recovered from nuclear wars, plague outbreaks, and climate disasters that would end other civilizations. She showed them archives of human history, cities burning in nuclear fire, then rebuilding stronger than before. Massive storms that flattened entire regions with humans returning to rebuild before the winds even stopped. Alien diseases that killed millions, only to see humans develop immunity and come back stronger. They call these events learning experiences, Zarakin said with disbelief in her voice. Thexmore was staring at the display with growing horror. Show me their current military strength. What appeared next made several counselors gasp audibly. The human fleet was enormous, not just warships but converted cargo vessels, mining ships, and even passenger liners that could be turned into weapons platforms within days. Their industrial capacity was staggering, with shipyards that could build battlecruisers in weeks instead of years. Sir, Zarakin said carefully, I intercepted a human military planning document. It details something called Total Defense Protocol. What is that? If Earth is directly threatened, every human ship in the galaxy becomes part of their military. Every space station, every mining platform, every civilian vessel. They estimate they could field over 100,000 armed ships within a month. The room was completely silent. The entire Zephyrian Empire had maybe 3,000 ships total. There is more, Zarakin continued reluctantly. I found records of human commanders discussing acceptable losses in theoretical war scenarios. They are prepared to lose entire fleets, entire colonies, and keep fighting. One document I found suggested they would continue fighting even if Earth itself was destroyed, using their colonies as bases for revenge. War Counselor Hexmon stood up slowly. Are you telling us that humans would rather die than surrender? I'm telling you that humans consider surrender to be the same thing as death, sir. In their minds, there is no difference. Zarakin showed them one final piece of footage. It was from a human training exercise, where young soldiers practiced fighting in the ruins of destroyed cities. The instructor, a woman named Colonel Beth Turner, was teaching them how to continue fighting even when cut off from supplies and reinforcements. Never give up, Colonel Turner told her students in the recording. Even if you are the last human alive, make the enemy pay for every step. That is what it means to be human. Thexmore finally broke the silence that followed. How many humans are there in total, all colonies combined? Conservative estimates suggest 50 billion, sir, but they reproduce quickly and are constantly establishing new colonies. By the time we could mount a full invasion, there might be 100 billion. The war counselor sat down heavily. His empire, which he had thought was mighty, contained 50 million Zephyrians. The humans outnumbered them 1,000 to 1, were spread across hundreds of worlds, and had shown they would fight to the death rather than surrender. Sir? Zarakin asked quietly. What are your orders? Thexmore looked around the room at his fellow counselors. All of them looked shaken, afraid, and uncertain. For the first time in their empire's history, they had encountered an enemy they could not defeat. I need time to think, he said finally. But I suspect we are going to do something that has never been done in Zephyrian history. What is that, sir? We are going to surrender. The decision chamber of the Zephyrian High Command had never seen such a moment in all their history. War Counselor Thexmore stood before a room full of the Empire's greatest military leaders, about to announce something that went against everything their civilization believed in. Fellow counselors, he began, his voice heavy with the weight of what he was about to say. For 300 years our empire has grown through conquest. We have never met an enemy we could not defeat. Today, that changes. The room erupted in angry voices. War Counselor Hexmon slammed his fist on the table. You cannot be serious. We are Zephyrians. We do not bow to anyone. Then we will all die, Thexmore replied simply. Intelligence Officer Zarakin, show them the final analysis. Zarakin activated the holographic display one last time. Numbers filled the air above the table, cold and terrifying in their simplicity. If we continue this war, she announced, we will lose everything. Our fleet strength, 3,000 ships. Human fleet strength, estimated 100,000 ships if they mobilize fully. Our population, 50 million across 18 worlds. Human population, over 50 billion across hundreds of worlds. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. But the real problem is not their numbers, counselors. It is their nature. We fight to conquer. They fight to survive. We can lose a battle and retreat. They will chase us across the galaxy until every last Zephyrian is dead. War Counselor Vekrus, an old veteran with countless battle scars, spoke quietly. What are you suggesting? We sue for peace, Thexmore said. We admit we made a mistake, attacking them, and we ask for forgiveness. The room exploded in outrage. Counselors shouted insults and accusations. Some called for Thexmore to be removed from command. But slowly, as the anger died down, reality set in. They had seen the footage. They knew the numbers. Pride would not save them from extinction. How do we even begin such a thing? Asked Hexmon quietly. We have never surrendered before. What words do we use? We send Admiral Crixvel back, to human space, Thexmore decided. He will carry a message of peace to Colonel Murphy and the humans of New Dakota. If anyone can make this work, it is the Admiral who survived their mercy. Admiral Crixvel was still recovering from his injuries when the orders came. His arms had been set in healing casts, and human medical technology had saved his life after the crash. When Thexmore visited him in the medical bay, the old Admiral looked older than his years. Sir, Crixvel said weakly, I failed you at New Dakota. I lost most of our fleet to farmers and miners. No, old friend, Thexmore replied, gently. You discovered something more valuable than victory. You learned what humans are truly capable of. Now I need you to do something even more difficult. What is that, sir? I need you to go back to them, under a flag of truce, and I need you to ask for peace. Crixvel was quiet for a long moment. Sir, do you understand what you are asking? I am to crawl before the species that defeated me? You are to save our entire civilization, Thexmore corrected. The humans showed you mercy when they could have left you to die. That tells me they might be reasonable. But if we wait, if we try to fight them again, they will show us no mercy at all. 3 days later, a single Zephyrian ship approached New Dakota. It flew slowly, broadcasting human languages on all frequencies. The message was simple. We come in peace. We wish to talk. Colonel Jake Murphy stood in the command center of the rebuilt colony, watching the alien ship approach. His security team was ready for anything, but something about the ship's movement seemed different. It was not aggressive. It seemed almost afraid. Sir, his communications officer reported, they are requesting permission to land. They say they have a message from their government. Murphy thought about it carefully. The colonists had spent weeks rebuilding after the battle. They had buried their dead and treated the wounded, but they had also prepared for another attack. Lisa Wong had improved the mining laser defenses, and Tom Bradley had trained more civilians in combat tactics. Let them land, Murphy decided. But keep all weapons trained on them. If this is a trick, we will be ready. The Zephyrian shuttle landed in the same field where the battle had been fought. Admiral Crixvel emerged slowly, his arms still in healing casts, followed by 2 guards carrying a white banner, the human symbol for truce that they had learned about. Murphy walked out to meet them, flanked by Lisa and Tom. The 2 groups faced each other in the afternoon sun, with the scars of battle still visible in the burned ground around them. Colonel Murphy, Crixvel said in careful English. I am Admiral Crixvel of the Zephyrian Empire. I have come to ask for something that has never been asked in our history. What is that? Murphy replied, his hand resting on his sidearm. Peace, Crixvel said simply. We wish to end this conflict before it destroys us all. Murphy studied the alien admiral carefully. Crixvel looked different from the proud warrior who had demanded surrender weeks ago. His bearing was humble, almost defeated. Go on, Murphy said. My government has studied your species, Crixvel continued. We have learned about your wars, your history, your capabilities. We have realized that we made a terrible mistake when we attacked your colony. He paused, gathering his courage for what came next. We formally apologize for our unprovoked attack on New Dakota. We offer full reparations for the damage we caused, and we request a peace treaty between our peoples. Tom Bradley stepped forward, suspicion clear in his voice. Why should we trust you? You came here to conquer us. Because, Crixville replied sadly, we finally understand what you are. You are survivors. If we continue this war, you will hunt us across the galaxy until every Zephyrian is dead. We would rather live as your friends than die as your enemies. Murphy looked at Lisa and Tom, then back at the alien admiral. What exactly are you offering? Complete withdrawal from all human territory, recognition of your sovereignty over all your colonies, trade agreements that benefit both our peoples, and a mutual defense pact. If anyone attacks humanity, the Zephyrian Empire will stand with you. Lisa spoke up. And what do you want in return? To live, Crixville said simply. To not be destroyed by a species that is stronger than we are. Murphy was quiet for several minutes thinking. Finally, he nodded. I cannot make this decision alone, but I will contact Earth and recommend that they send a diplomat to negotiate with you. Thank you, Crixville said with obvious relief. 6 months later, Ambassador Helen Tucker signed the Treaty of New Dakota in the same field where the battle had been fought. The Zephyrian Empire became humanity's first major ally in the galaxy, and Zephyrian merchants soon established profitable trade routes with human colonies. The other species of the galaxy watched in amazement as the mighty Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 17 worlds, chose friendship over war with the humans. The message spread quickly across known space. Humans were dangerous enemies but valuable friends. Admiral Crixville later wrote in his memoirs that the decision to make peace was the wisest choice in Zephyrian history. Through alliance with humanity, the Empire grew stronger and more prosperous than it had ever been through conquest. And in the colony of New Dakota, a monument was built where the peace treaty was signed, bearing a simple inscription. Here, two species chose friendship over fear.